Hello and welcome to Tech Circle, and you're listening to a fresh episode of Tech This Week, where we bring you a weekly roundup of all the major developments in the space of tech startups, enterprise technology, and policy. This is Shweta, and joining me are my colleagues Payal Ganguly and Supriya Roy. So it's been over 2 months now that India has been battling with COVID-19, and we have gone through a phase of locking down, and now we are in the fifth phase, where we are seeing most of the states and center trying to reopen the economy. At the beginning of this month, the country entered the first phase of the three-phase unlock plan, which was announced by the Union Ministry of Home Affairs.
That's right. Following suit with Unlock 1.0 UPI or Unified Payments Interface transactions, the volume rose to 1.23 billion, an increase of 24% in May compared to the previous month.
Okay. And to provide for private offices getting back to regulars, 91 Springwood Solutions has reopened 12 of its 27 office spaces across the country. And now, opening now in Delhi NCR, Gurgaon, Noida, Bengaluru, Hyderabad, and Goa. The company will reopen the rest based on government advisories and its own assessment of health and safety.
That's right, Shweta. Also this week, OYO announced that it will restart operations starting June 8th. So, talking about the measures that the budget hospitality chain is likely to follow, CEO Rohit Kapoor said in a video that the properties listed with OYO will be given a sanitized tag on the app for following guidelines on cleaning the property ahead of reopening. Also, the hotels will be updated on a minimum SOP for reducing contact with customers during check-in, check-out, following hygiene standards, providing room service, etc. However, the company did not comment on how many of its properties in India will be operational starting June 8th, because these are also subject to state guidelines.
Right, Payal. The hospitality and travel sector, including online travel aggregators, have been among the worst hit from the COVID-19 pandemic. Which reminds me, Shweta, weren't you tweeting about the credit shell with an airline the other day? How did that pan out? Did you get your refund?
Oh, yes, it's been really tough with the airline, Supriya, as they're randomly canceling bookings and transferring the amount into a virtual wallet, which they're calling credit shell. And at the same time, they're imposing a lot of conditions on passengers while using the amount of the so-called credit shell.
Well, Shweta, you're not alone. According to industry sources, airlines are holding on to agent refund money worth at least rupees 4,200 crore. Most of it is being held in credit shells and virtual wallets, as you mentioned. And the airlines neither have the cash reserves nor revenues due to a 2-month suspension in operations, obviously, due to the national lockdown. Now, to broker peace, some of the OTAs, such as Ease My Trip, have taken to refunding customers, and they have issued refunds of up to rupees 50 crore in cash. The virtual refunds, however, aren't something which are going to appease customers, which is why the OTAs are hoping that the airlines do refund when the money comes in.
Wow, that is risky. Given the state of the airline industry in India especially, if one player goes down, it will have a domino effect on all OTAs as well.
Well, you're right, Supriya. Most of the OTAs in India earn majority of their revenues as commission from air ticketing. For Make My Trip, the share of air ticketing is at 58% for its gross bookings, while it is close to 90% in case of Yatra. Speaking of which, Make My Trip also laid off 350 people from its India operations as part of a cost rationalization move this week. The roles were mainly related to international travel planning and allied sectors, which are unlikely to recover for at least 6 months.
The crisis has exposed the fault lines of OTAs, which will need to look beyond the stay in business. Sad times indeed. Moving on, since we're talking about jobs, this week we also covered regulatory disclosures for salary and compensation hikes of India's top IT brass at Infosys and Wipro.
Well, yes, former Wipro CEO Abidali Nimajwala's salary rose 12% to nearly 31 crore rupees for the financial year, which ended in 2020. While founder Azim Premji and chairman Rishabh Premji gave up profit-linked commissions for the year given the current economic slowdown.
Yeah, also Infosys CEO Salil Parekh saw his salary increase by 27% to $6.1 million. The company gave over 25% hike to most of its top management despite expected losses, as stated by the company to US regulator SEC. A total of 77 Infosys employees took home more than 1 crore rupees in compensation in the financial year ended 2020. This is compared to the 63 staffers who made 8-figure salaries in the previous financial year. Well, this is in sharp contrast to TCS, which recently announced that its top management will be taking a pay cut for the financial year, with their CEO Rajesh Gopinathan taking a 16% cut in the salary and COO N Ganapati Subramaniam taking a 13% lower salary in FY 2019-2020 over the previous year. All this while they expect COVID-19 business uncertainty in the quarters to come.
Shifting gears to our funding coverage in tech startups this week, deal making appeared to heal back towards early May levels. We reported 16 deals, of which 13 had disclosed amounts of funding that totaled to the north of $88 million. The $42.5 million deal at Cars Trade really saved grace as compared to last week's total of $50 million.
Which were the deals apart from car trade which stood out, Supriya?
Cars Trade was a massive round, raised funds after 3 good years. But just to answer your question, what you'll notice in the top deals this week is that most of these startups cater to product offerings that are viewed to be discretionary spend from the common consumer's eye. So beauty product seller Nykaa, cars marketplace Car Trade, and home decor startup Design Cafe, and furniture seller Wooden Street will likely use the capital to combat a tight-pocketed economy.
So all in all, maybe we can say that our deals coverage throughout the COVID-19 lockdown has been as dynamic as the stock market movements since March.
True, absolutely right. This week of the lockdown had the first week of the lockdown had the lowest tally of $32.5 million. But as of late in May, the figure has been swinging in and around $100 million. Mid-April, in fact, 1 week saw a total of $429 million in total.
That was all in this edition. Stay logged on and tuned in to techcircle.in for staying on top of everything tech. And thank you so much for listening.